everybody. I hope that you are well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 3 to 5 lesson on action verbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English language arts. We said we are doing grade 3 to 5. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of action verbs. All right, so we see that our chapter is action verbs. Our subject is English language arts. We're doing grade 3 to 5. And the lesson that we are going to be focusing on today is to use action verbs, and it's to identify action verbs. All right. So an action verb, right? So when it comes to action verbs, an action verb, it tells you what a noun does. And a noun is either a person or a thing, right? So it will tell us what the noun does. And if we look at an example, right? Because we say an action verb, it tells us what the noun did. The noun can either be a person's name or we can use pronouns. And if we look at an example, it says she ate an apple. So now question is, what did she do? The question is, what did she do? And ate is our verb. Our action tells us what she did. All right, if we look at another one, it says we smile. We being our noun. So now the question is, what are we doing? We smile. So smile is our action verb that tells us what the person is doing. All right, so some action verbs, right? They also tell you about the action that is hard to see. And an example of that is he thought, like you are thinking about it. He thought hard, or he thought long and hard, but he thought hard. All right, and if we look at another example, it says, we like the show. We like the show. And we can say, like is our verb. So, which means that our action verbs, it tells us what somebody is doing, and it can either be something physical or it is actions that is hard to see. And something is hard to see is the word thought or to think and like. All right. And if we look at the words over here, these are more of our action verbs, right? And our action verbs that shows the action that somebody is doing or something is doing. And then we can say jump is an action verb. And we also have sing. It's an action that someone is doing. They are singing. If you are about to write exams, then you need to study. Study. To eat dancing, which is a movement, cry or sobbing, to kneel down, to think. Remember, we said think, it's actions that is hard to see. Read, pull, sit down, wave, drink, and cook. Those are all action verbs. And the action verbs, it tells us what the noun is doing. And we said some of our action verbs, right? They tell us something that is hard to, they tell us about an action that is hard to see. Yes, action verbs are things that you can do. It's the action that you're doing. It's things that you're doing, right? Physical activities, non-physical activities, whether you're singing, you're dancing, right? Whether you're kneeling down, even when you're bowing, that is something that you're doing. Whether you're talking, it's something you're doing. And if we think of more action verbs, right? Yes, walking is also an action verb. What more? Give me more action verbs. You say talking, walking, things that you can do, things that shows action that is taking place. Climbing definitely is an action verb. Yes, climbing is an action verb. Walking, hiking, it's an action verb. Exercise. So when you are doing physical education, that is also us using our body and movement, right? So which means that that is an action verb because we are exercising, we are doing PT or physical education, or you're going to the gym, even being on the jungle gym. It is you doing some form of action. Playing is an action verb. Yes. What are more things that you can do that shows that it is an action verb? Wearing, unless we say dressing, it's like you're getting dressed. Maybe we can say getting dressed, like dressing. That is an action verb because it's something that you're doing. You're either undressing or you're dressing, you're putting on things. So we'd rather say that is an action verb. All right. So these are basically our action verbs. And we said action verbs tells you what the noun is doing. And action verbs, it can tell you about the action that is very hard to see. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca and the check action verbs. And we're going to use action verbs. Yes, well done. Running is an action verb. Running is an action verb. All right. So we're now going to use our action verbs. So we're going to use our action verbs correctly. All right. So now we're going to complete the sentence with the action verb, right? With the action verb. It says, Mrs. Arnold. So do we say Mrs. Arnold? Do we say mix nuts into the cookie batter? Or do we say Mrs. Arnold mixes? So we need to choose one of these words. Do we say Mrs. Arnold mix nuts into the cookie batter, or do we say Mrs. Arnold mixes? So either mix or do we say mixes? And if we were to choose the correct option, right? We need to choose either between mix or mixes nuts into the cookie batter. And if we choose the correct one, we can say Mrs. Arnold mixes. So yes, mixes is correct. Oopsie. Sorry that I spent so much time over there. No problem. Look at the next one. My brother and I playing the piano every day. Do we say practice the piano or do we say practices the piano? So my brother and I, do we say practice playing the piano? Or do we say my brother and I practices playing the piano every day? Which one is correct? So my brother and I, do we say practice playing the piano every day? Or my brother and I practices playing the piano every day? All right. And if we choose the correct one, we can say my brother and I, they only practice playing the piano every day. Practice piano. We are learning action verbs. Action verbs. And then the last one, and then we're going to our test. It says Hector, a potato chip to Keenan. Do we say offers or offered? Offer or offered? Do you want me? Is it Adebayo? You don't understand. Do you want me to explain again what action verbs is? Action verbs is when you're doing something, it's an action that is being done. So even if you are talking, it's in action. If you're playing, it's in action. Something that you're doing, if you're writing, it's in action. Running is in action, right? It's just verbs, but it's more, we just call it more action verbs. Because things that you're doing, those are action verbs. So you're actively doing these things. When we exercise, when we are jumping, these are all action verbs that we are doing, right? All right, so now let's go to our test. Learning, yes, is an action. Offer is an action. All right, so now we're going to complete the sentence with the correct action verb. It says the girls, do we say the girls ear on the phone for hours or the girl chatter on the phone for hours? So option one, the girls ear on the phone for hours, or option two, the girls chatter on the phone for hours. All right, and if we were to choose the correct sentence, right, or the correct word to complete the sentence, and we say the girls chatter because they're talking. Another word for talking is chatter. So the girls chatter on the phone for hours. So well done. Option two is correct. The next one says Miss Farrell's green necklace, Friday in the light or sparkled in the light. Do we say Friday in the light or it sparkled in the light? Option one or option two to show the action verb. All right. So now it says Miss Farrell's green necklace, Friday in the light or it sparkled in the light. And if we were to choose the correct option or the correct action verb, then we would say it sparkled in the night or in the light. Well done. So sparkled is correct. Mimi Rabbit. Mimi Rabbit. Do we say fruit on the carrot or nibbled on the carrot? Mimi's rabbit. Fruit on the carrot or nibbled on the carrot? So Mimi's rabbit. What is Mimi's rabbit doing? We can then say yes, Mimi's rabbit nibbled on the carrot. Nibbled is like almost like in a form of eating, but small pieces at a time. So nibbled is correct. So well done. All right, one more and then we're going to the next lesson. Jeffrey loves peas and potato, but he, do we say hates carrots or do we say but he dinner carrots? So Jeffrey loves peas and potatoes, but he hates carrots or he dinner carrots. All right, so we can say Jeffrey loves peas and potatoes, but he hates, meaning he don't like carrots. So well done. All right. Now we're going to, oopsie, Ibo. I don't know what's going on now. We're going to the next lesson, which is to identify action verbs. I don't know why it's this big now. We're now going to identify verbs. If we look at these three sentences, we need to underline the verbs or call out the verbs or identify the verbs within the sentences. And if we look at the first sentence, it says the waves crash into the cliff. We need to identify the action verb within that sentence. We need to select the action verb. Is it the? Is it waves? Is it crash? Is it into? Is it the? Or is it cliff? And if we were to identify our action verb, then we would say it is crash. Yes. The next one says a spider creeps across the floor. A spider creeps across the floor. The spider creeps across the floor. We need to identify the action verb. All right, and if we select our action verb, we will say creeps is our action verb. And then lastly, Miss Vincent drives fast. Miss Vincent drives fast. We need to identify the action verb within that sentence. Miss Vincent drives fast. All right. And if we were to choose our correct answer, we will say drives. It is our action verb because it shows that someone is doing something. All right. So that is now the end of our lesson. We did action verbs, and we said action verbs are things that one does. It's the action that the person is doing. And we made a few examples of action verbs, right? So it's either a person that does an action, an animal does an action, right? But an action is something that is being done, right? All right, so this is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade threes, and I really hope you're going to have a good day further or good evening further. Good night. Goodbye.